to Founders Before 9 a.m. If you have ever wondered whether the successful entrepreneurs start their day a bit different, you're in the right place. We are the backstage pass to the secret rituals, mindset hacks, and tiny habits that build loud legacies. I'm your host, Candice, and I'm also the founder of Miss Morning Skincare. Today, I wanted to introduce you someone who has worked in the fashion industry for years, and she spent years as a fashion buyer at Myer, and then she also helped Forever New to expand into Asia market. Now she has been working with a lot of founders to launch a brand from scratch. She is Thu Nguyen, and she's the founder of Unhinged Business, a consultancy for fashion, beauty, and FMCG brands. Welcome, Thu.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad that because you made a trip to Sydney for this podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And because you have sit on both sides of the table, so I guess all of you share today going to be really incredible for a lot of brands founders. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, can't wait.
So firstly, I wanted to ask, as a business owner now, what's your morning routine looks like?
So I'm a morning person. I get up really, really early. I'm usually up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Wow.
And
we need a high five here.
And I've always been that way. I just really love waking up early. Yeah. And also because I deal with a lot of like international partners. So especially now in this time zone, if I'm talking to New York or the Eastern Standard Time, so my meetings mostly start at like 6 a.m. So really early, I have my meetings, and then I have my sauna at home that I have to do my sauna every day. Yep. And then I go for a walk and then back to meetings really. So like really busy.
Yeah. Oh my God. So you literally starting your meetings like how you...
Yeah, really, really. It's hard because when you're working with an international time zone, so you have like America, the Americas, like the US and also Canada, so early in the morning, and then Australia comes online, and then Asia comes online, and then in the afternoon you've got the Middle East, and then at night time you've got London and also the rest of Europe. So it's pretty much the whole day. That's quite global. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite challenging as well.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, like, for all of this back-to-back meetings, is there any like tiny things you keep to yourself? You mentioned, of course, sauna, and anything that you think it's really work for you to maybe get ready mentally, physically?
Yeah, I think it's really important to just not just sit in a room in front of your desk all day. So I really try, because I work from home, so I really try to really get out, go for a walk. I know that in Melbourne the weather is not always the best, but always do my best to like walk outside, have some sun whenever there is, really just slow down and just take time for myself, which I think is really important in a world that right now we're just so fast and moving so fast, where we just kind of, time just goes by so fast.
I know, yeah. Yeah, and I know that because your life, like your experience has changed a lot, your identity, and also, so what has the morning routine been changed across all of different versions of your life?
Yeah, so back before COVID, I used to actually travel 30 weeks in a year.
Wow.
This is before Zoom. So I would be going on a plane to New York just to have a meeting and then going back home. And then we'd have like a world tour when we are showcasing our fashion pieces, or we're having just really much just meetings that it's so funny because back then that was the world. And I think that's really why I'm such a morning person, because my kind of sleep patterns is a bit all over the place. So yeah, with all that traveling, it's so different to what it is now, where you can just have a Zoom call with somebody else in the other side of the world.
It's much easier and quicker.
It's so much easier. And when I kind of think about, and this was like less than 10 years ago, what the world was like, my morning routine was crazy when I was just get up, get on a plane, be in another country, have meetings, get back home, then go back on a plane. And I don't do that anymore. So such a different life now. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I'm already wondering, like, what was the life back then? So let's maybe go back a little bit. Because I know that you previously you work for the big corporate and you work as a fashion buyer. It's very opposite as where you are right now. So how did you ended up in, let's say, in the fashion industry, and how did you working as a fashion buyer? Like,
well, it's quite funny because I never really thought that I would be in fashion. So when I was at uni and throughout my schooling years, I was en route to be an investment banker.
Okay.
So that was literally where I was.
Well, what did you study, by the way?
I did commerce. I did finance and investment banking. So back then, that was all I wanted to do. And at uni, this was probably around 2009, like the GFC time. And it was like so hard to get a grad job at the banks. And I've always loved marketing, and I kind of just fell into, I applied for a job at the Myer head office as a buying assistant in menswear, and I just got it. And then, so I had no experience actually in buying, and then it just worked out. So I started there in menswear, in buying for a few years. So kind of really had that experience at a big department store, really understand it. And all the buying, all the fashion. And this was actually before Zara, H&M was in Australia. So, you know, there wasn't really much online shopping. So the retail world was so different back then. And it's just so crazy because I remember whenever we did buying trips, we'd go overseas and get the samples and then come back and kind of like develop the samples, whereas you don't do that now because it's so accessible online everywhere. And then after that, I went to Forever News. So I opened up all the Asia division there. So I was up in China every 3 weeks.
Wow, that's crazy.
Singapore, Manila, and Jakarta as well. So that was a lot of Asia there. So I opened up all their China stores there. So a lot of travel in Asia there.
That's very intense.
So but then after that, I was still in corporate. I was at PVH Brands. So I was working with Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Nancy Gans, and really opened that division out internationally to the UK. So working with all the UK retailers, all the US retailers like Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus. So a lot of traveling as well there, going into, you know, Seattle to meet with Nordstrom, going to Dallas to meet with Neiman Marcus, New York to meet with Bloomingdale's. And it was just a revolving, like rotating, traveling so much.
Wow.
Whereas now I just do it on Zoom for half an hour in the morning. So such a different world. And then after that, I've had all the experience in fashion and in corporate. I wanted to start going into startups. So it was so different going from corporate where you're around like hundreds and thousands of people and so black and white and very rigid in processes to startups. So I worked at a couple of startups in fashion from day one, building them up and pretty much using my skills from international to build up those brands. And then obviously COVID happened, so I kind of stopped traveling. And I said, well, I've been in fashion for over 10 years now. What next? And I went into FMCG and wellness. So I went from selling fashion clothes to selling metric tons of erythritol and tea, importing that over from Brazil, from, you know, everywhere in the world, from India. So really very much commodity trading. So that was an experience.
Wow, that's such a different experience.
Then like dealing with all your supermarkets, right, which is completely different to your department stores. So where I was dealing with the high-end department stores, I was then dealing with your Coles, your Woolies, but then also the international supermarket chains like Whole Foods in the US. But very much dealing with raw ingredients as well. So working with the farms. So completely different field. And then I did that for a couple of years, and then I entered into beauty, which I am obsessed with. I love beauty. And I did that for a couple of years, which was really fun. So I kind of had experience across all the three industries. and I love them all. And I think over the last year and a half, nearly 2 years, I wanted to take a step back and kind of go, well, I've had all this experience with all these brands, all these companies. What I really wanted to do was, and I held COO positions, and what I really wanted to do was start my own consultancy business. I think there are hundreds of marketing agencies out there helping founders.
Definitely.
But there isn't really an agency helping founders in operations, in logistics, in supply chain, in actually entering these markets, the US, the UK, Asia, but also understanding how to deal with the buyers, launching, trading, and that's where Unhinged Business kind of started. Yeah.
Wow, it's such a journey, I would say.
Yeah.
So the first question that I'm genuinely curious as a brand founder is, I guess back then when you work as a buyer, so not only you need to maybe attend Fashion Week and get samples, but you may also receive a lot of like the brand deck or page from the brands.
Yeah.
So what do you think when you receive the deck or the brand page? What cues a page immediately? Like you think, oh, it is off.
Like a pitch deck from other brands?
Yes.
I think for me, the thing is, when it comes to founders sending out pitch decks, and we do this quite a lot at Unhinged Business, working with pitch decks, is people don't understand that like buyers or whoever you're sending it to usually just flip through it on their phone, right?
Like really
so
quick.
I hate seeing brand decks that are like over 10 pages long. You know, when you start getting over 10 pages long, you've already lost them. So for me, it's really, and you might have different variations of brand decks depending on who you're sending it to, right? You've got to actually mold it in a different way. So it's really, the first 3 pages are so important to just get to the point. Yeah.
Like what's the problem you're going to solve?
Yeah, exactly. That's a big, and you know, like I said, it really depends on the retailer as well. So the first 3 pages is really telling them why they need your brand in their business. What is the gap that they don't have? Why are you not a me too? Yeah.
And sometimes I guess a lot of brands, even though they have like a big brand awareness, but they can't always get a yes from the retailers. So from your perspective, like for a brand to get a yes, what is the key element that buyer usually looking at?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I think at the end of the day, it's timing. Timing matters so much. Because at the end of the day, for example, you might be pitching a skincare brand and your skincare brand might be exactly what they want. But unfortunately with the timing, that the skincare category is downwards overall in retail. So it's going to be harder to get in versus phases where the skincare category is up. So, and also because it's real estate space, one in, one out. Right? Because you only have a certain amount of shelf space. So if they're going to put you on the shelf, what are the brands going out? Once again, timing. There could be a brand that's not doing well. So they're looking for
new brands.
Yeah. I had an instant recently where we were trying to push a brand into Bloomingdale's and they were just like, no, it has to be online, So we thought, okay, that's great. And then in the 11th hour, they called us and said, hey, the brand backed out. It's not working. Can you go into all 10 doors?
Wow.
So it's really timing.
It's hard to tell.
It's so hard to tell. And my advice to all founders is just keep pitching. Just keep staying relevant in front of the buyer's mind. I've also had instances where, you know, you've been trying to talk to a buyer for like 12 months because you only have an open window of twice a year and then they leave. And then another buyer comes in, you're starting the whole process again. It could be a blessing or a curse, right? Because a blessing is a buyer that you were talking to might not be open to your brand, but the buyer that is new might be. It's so hard to say, right? Because, and that's the thing, you just have to keep on pitching and being in front of them and showing them every time you're seeing them, every few months, how your brand has progressed. You know, we did this, we did that. This is what's happening on social media. We launched here, we launched there, so they can actually see the progression of your growth.
Okay.
For them to get in more, to buy into you more. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah,
sense. I'm
yeah.
literally taking my notes.
That's why I'm like, it's so hard because it's how lucky are you? You know, timing matters so much.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And there's a very interesting discussion, I think, for a lot of brands, because usually I think for the brands founded in Australia, and we always thinking, should we well build in Australia first and then thinking about global market, or should we maybe can go overseas in the early stage? So what's your comments on this?
When founders come to me and tell me that they want to go overseas, my first question is, how much money do you have?
That's the reality.
Really, how much money do you have?
Yeah.
Because I think that, and I've had instances where founders are just, you know, expanding everywhere, and then they realize they run out of money or they just didn't do it properly. And when you enter a market, you've literally got one chance, and it's so expensive. Everyone wants to go into the US. Right, the little creme of every market. The US is such an expensive exercise, and you have to do it properly and you have to do it well. There has to be brand strategy, there's operational strategy, there's things like compliance, labeling. It's such a beast. And it's really about really understanding your strategy. Even like the matured brand or well-established brand, if they have some like mistakes they have made, maybe cost them millions of dollars to fix it. And this is probably more so for beauty brands as well, is the compliance and the labeling, especially like the Australian labeling is so different to if you're going into Canada, if you're going into the Middle East, if you're going to the US. They're actually all different production runs. So it's such a beast, and it's what I usually tell founders is don't focus on 5 markets that you want to be everywhere. Focus on the market that you think your product is going to do well first, the low-hanging fruit. It might not be the US, it might be the UK, it might be New Zealand, but get that experience first in launching in an international market and try that out first.
But for some of the brands that I guess it also depends on the background of the founder, I think. So because you mentioned that you also help the brand to expand to Asia market, Chinese market, I think compared with US or UK market, it's going to be so different. Like language is different, culture is different, everything is different. So that could be a lot of challenge for the founder as well.
Yeah, I mean, China is a beast in its own. I think it's like in another world.
Like not play with anyone.
It's so hard for any brand to do really well in China. And I think China's like the end goal, really, to get into, right? But there's, like you said, it's localization. I remember when I was with a brand that we entered into China, this is for the fashion brand, all our fits had to change. So a size 8 wasn't a size 8 in China. Everything had to change. We did capsules just for China, for Chinese New Year. We did everything. It was like a different brand in China. So it's a whole beast. Like your brand just looks completely different in China. Not only that, even when it comes to marketing, it's not Instagram that you're used to. Influencers. It's your WeChat. It's your the little red book. It's so different, and you have to really understand the language. You can't, and if you don't, you can't do it yourself. You have to find someone to really help you do that.
Exactly. Because I am Chinese, and like back then we didn't use any Instagram, Facebook. We're like disconnected with all the world. And also I think if you like grow up in certain culture background, and you can only kind of influenced by the people around you, not somebody famous overseas or so. It's you can imagine it's kind of hard to market in a completely different culture background, different country.
And I also think when it comes to founders wanting to go to the market, they need to really be on the ground and be there. A lot of people, they want to go into the US, but they've never actually been to the US. So I'm like, why do you want your brand in there if you've never been to the US? You've only been or they've only been to LA or New York, but have you been to Dallas? Have you been to Virginia? Have you been to Chicago? Because there were a lot of the time, the biggest states are where the sales are made. They don't actually really know their local market. And that's why I traveled 30 weeks in a year, because I had to really see what was happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you work with the startup brand, I guess it's can be like really challenging because of less marketing fees, less staff, less operations. So what do you see, like, for all the brands that you have been working with? What's the main issue, or what's the main problem you see different brands, different founders make over and over again?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the reasons why I started Unhinged Business, because a lot of the time founders, you know, you spend so much money on marketing, so much money on product, but there's one thing making money, but then also how do you control the money from going out? And that's the operations, right? And a lot of the time they have issues with the operations, the cash flow, the capital. So most of the time it is that. It's how do you save money? Yeah. It's not just how do you make money, how do you save money? Yeah,
that is so important, like your profit.
Yeah, because I think especially when founders are scaling, they're just thinking about expansion, more revenue, but they're not actually thinking about protecting the EBITDA and saving cost.
Yeah, I think that is very hard, especially nowadays everything goes up, and if you don't have a control of like your spending, you can literally spend over what you have earned.
Exactly. And especially when it comes to like logistics, tariffs, freight, production, that's just variables and they just go up all the time. So let's talk about your own business. So it's called Unhinged Business. What's the thought on the name? It's so funny because everyone just always asks me about the name, and I'm like, I don't know.
I think it's very cool.
Yeah. Well, originally last year I started the Instagram page just to post my thoughts on business, which was separate to consulting, and I was just posting stuff about what I thought what the world was happening, like politically, economically, and everything else. And then I just thought, oh, well, I'm just going to post my unhinged thoughts that everyone thinks about, but they just don't say. And that's where it comes from. And I think as well, even with our consultancy, for us, it's how do we succeed? How do we save money? How do we do better operational costs? And sometimes we have to be a little bit unhinged. And I think all founders are in some way.
And I guess the model of consultancy is very different with all like the experience that you did before, like from the brand point of view. So like what's the early stage looks like for you?
Well, I think we've been quite busy because we've been signing up quite a lot of brands, but the hard thing is with our consultancy, we work in the business. So we're quite involved. So we act as pretty much fractional COOs. So there's only so many brands that we can take on board. And I'm very much about, instead of just getting an invoice from somebody, like I want to make sure that we're actually going to help them. So we've turned down a few brands and a few founders that I'm like, I know that I can't really help them. So we're quite, I guess, picky who we work with. And who we align with, which I think is really important because we work in the business. We kind of see ourselves an extension to the team. So we can't just take everyone.
Okay.
Right?
That's a very interesting business model because like you need to put a lot of effort, not like you have a standard template to kind of giving everyone. So like when you were saying you're kind of picky for the brand that you want to work with, so what kind of the ideal clients or brands that you think you can help with?
So they're always going to be in FMCG, beauty or fashion. But
you're so specific for the industry.
I'm very specific because I do believe we can't be everything for everyone. So the more specific that you can be, the more easy it is to help them. Also, I guess the founder themselves, how we work with founders as well, because for our strategy is not necessarily to just do the job for you. It's actually to take you through the journey and educate you how to do the operations properly, how to manage cash flow, how to manage logistics, so that later on you don't actually need us. So for us, it's more educational. So taking them through the journey so that they actually understand, study from us pretty much, so that later on they're off their training wheels and they're able to run their own business from an operational point of view and a more efficient operations than relying on us. That's kind of more my business model, to really empower them and grow them.
So pretty much I guess it's like from the very early stage brands and until they have like more capabilities to handle a lot of things by themselves.
Which is what I love. Like I love like teaching founders really and how to save money. I love that.
Okay, that's why you studied like investing and all of that. It's gonna help. And also I'm thinking that because like you mentioned, nowadays like most of the agency focus on marketing, the most glamorous side, but you choose to help with the operational and commercial, the unsexy part. So why did you choose to focus on this?
I think that's because I kind of feel like every role that I've been in and every founder that I've also crossed paths with, that's literally what they struggle with most of the time the most. I think when it comes to marketing or product, that should always sit with the founder because that's the soul and the heart of the brand, right? They already know what they want to do from a brand strategy, from a brand perspective, from a product. But a lot of founders don't know freight. They don't know logistics. They don't know compliance. They don't know international markets. And that's where I just love it. It's my passion to really teach founders to know all that part. And
I guess like you said, especially for the first time brand founder, they can pretty much imagine it's gonna be complicated, especially when they have an idea and then commercialize it. Then there are gonna be so many choices and so many mistakes that they can make.
Yeah, for sure. I think and that's when we get into the nitty gritty, because even barcodes, there's an art for barcodes, you know.
Oh my God. What is that? You need to tell me.
Because I think a lot of founders make mistake that they get the wrong barcodes. That it doesn't start with like a 9.3. They're not GS1 approved. There's like a whole science around barcodes, right? Little things like that, they're not going to know. So, but I found there's some instances where they don't know. We kind of come in a bit later in the stage where they are growing, for example, to a big supermarket, and the supermarket goes, your barcodes are all wrong. So
imagine that's a disaster.
Imagine the amount of money to relabel all the barcodes.
Otherwise
you're talking about like hundreds of pallets. But had they known to get the right barcode from the beginning, you wouldn't have this problem.
Right.
That's kind of where we come in along to kind of go from an operational perspective. What are the gaps? What haven't you looked at? The labeling, the barcodes, even when it comes to the packaging as well. So those little things you didn't even know about barcodes. That could affect later on.
Oh my God. Yes. And like trademark issues, it happens a lot. Compliance is the number one thing. It's the biggest thing that I've seen a lot of founders really struggle with as they grow. So we also come in at stages where they're growing. So they've been around for a couple of years and now, they want to go overseas. So we kind of set the foundation of what you actually need to have a look at when you're going overseas. The tax implications. That's another thing as well. If you're registering VAT in the UK, the US tax laws are completely different here. So just setting them up first so there won't be any surprises down the road, because later on it's going to cost them so much money. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I wanted to ask one thing. So for like the brand you have already worked with, what do you think to make a brand looking like they are building a brand strategically from the early stage?
I think it's more so having that vision. I talk about like when I start working with a brand. So when I start working with a brand, probably my question to them is, what is your end goal? Because that would really dictate how you scale. How you get money in, and also how you operate the business. So when I say what's your end goal for a brand, is your end goal to sell in 5 years? Is your end goal to continue with the brand until you retire for another 20, 30 years, is your goal to then pass it on generational heritage brands? Because that's very different, right? Because if you want to, if your goal is to sell the brand in 5 years, your scaling has to be quite fast and quite exponential. It's getting investors in, it's getting capital in. It's very different to if your goal is going to be more a long-term thing. So it's very different depending on what your goal is. And I think as a brand founder, in your mind, you should actually know what is your goal for the brand at the end of the day.
I never thought this.
What is your goal? Because that would really determine
the way you approach.
Exactly. And it even comes to entity setup as well. So if your goal is to, what I call a heritage brand, is to pass it on to your family or your children, how you set up your brand legally will be very different to if your goal was to just, you want to just sell to private equity in 5 years, because that entity setup will be very different as well, right? And people, like, I think founders should really think about this at early stages because, like I said, it dictates how they should actually run their business and where they should actually expand to, and how they set up their business, really.
Yeah. Wow. Even for myself, I haven't thought about this.
Because, for example, let's say you want to sell your business in 5 years. You wouldn't then go set up complicated entities, right? Because it'll be very hard for you to sell it later. You wouldn't then go get, 20 investors in. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's what is your end goal?
Yeah.
It's because everyone has an end goal for their brand, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the times founders probably don't really think about this at the very beginning.
Yeah. I think, like, especially in the early stage, most of the brand is still kind of in their surviving mode.
Exactly.
So what they wanted to focus is only how can I sell, and how can I letting more people know and build up my brand awareness. But when you saying what is your end goal, I think this is the question that most of the founder maybe never thought of.
Like I said, if your end goal is to sell it later on in 5 years, a lot of founders now go get investment from like 20, 30 people for their cash flow, right? But maybe they should do it in a different way instead, right? Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, this is really inspiring. And now, like, the business, you have another lady helped with you. So what's her name again? Kylie. And how did you two, like, focus on different kind of roles, and what's the role of each other?
So Kylie helps me with certain brands. So she is my head of operations. I also have Michelle, who's my head of like creative. So she kind of comes in and helps if founders need some, I guess, oversight on, if they're launching into Singapore, how their creatives would look. But so we're expanding the team, which is really exciting. I've known I've known Kylie since my first job. So nearly 20 years now. So we've kind of grown together. Yeah. She's very like well experienced. I can tell. She has so many knowledge and expertise in the industry as well. Yeah, she's so lovely. Yeah. She's great. So like for you, it's more focused on like fashion brand or acquiring the new clients. Yeah, that's good. And I'm wondering, like, to like working in this consultancy agency, like what's the biggest challenge for you right now? I think it's time. Oh yeah. It's always time, because at the end of the day, even though we say no to quite a lot of brands, the brands that we work with, we want to give them all our time, right? So it's really managing the time and making sure that, the founders are being supported. And because I feel like a lot of agency or consultancy, actually their main struggle is getting more clients, but you are quite opposite. Because like I said, we're very picky who we work with. We want to work with founders that we know we can help succeed. And not just sign up for an invoice. You know what I mean? So I think it's very important, because it is still our reputation, right? Yeah, exactly. And like it's different, because when it comes to like marketing agency, branding is so subjective, really. But with us, we need results. So if a founder comes to me and needs help with their cash flow, we need to find ways to get them cash.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very black and white. So we need to be able to, you know, really show the results that are more tangible, I think. Yeah.
Right. And when you're working with different brand founders, I guess every brand have their like own culture and people. So how would you manage the expectations from them? Like you, at the beginning, maybe you say, okay, we can help you with this.
Yeah.
And maybe some founders overthinking or think you can overachieving. So how would you manage that?
Well, we're very transparent and lucky for us, I'm quite brutally honest.
Yeah.
It's so funny that like when we did the event in Sydney and Melbourne, me and Carly...
The event I went to.
Yeah, so when we did the event to meet all the founders of operations, Carly and I kind of went back and said, oh, maybe we were a bit too negative and told them that it's really hard doing business because we don't sugarcoat. We tell it how it is. Yeah. So like a lot of founders that come to me and say, oh, I want to go into the US, I want to go into Sephora, I want to go into Ulta. I pretty much tell them it's not going to happen. So any other agencies that tell you that they can get you into these retailers and get you all this cash flow and get you investments in a certain time frame, it's probably not going to do that job. So we're pretty much very transparent on what we can and can't do. And like I said, I would tell them the same thing I just told you before. It's all about timing. It's all about, you know, what your strategy is all about, the cash flow that you have. So we're very much transparent from the very beginning what your obstacles would be. Yeah.
And also I think along the way, the communication is also very important. Like keep updating with them, like what happens and what's the progress. Yeah. And how did you did it?
Yeah. And like I said, we're a bit different to other agents because we have to work very in the business. So we see all their P&L. We see all their cash flow. We see all their, pretty much everything transparently. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a lot. Like you literally on top of like everything.
Yeah.
To help them like a second brain.
yeah, pretty much. So that's why we don't really take too many clients on board just because then we can't give them all the love that we need. Yeah.
But I guess like for different brands, of course, they're going to have different needs. And for example, if for certain brands, they wanted to expand to US market, and of course, you already have like the connections, network and experience, but is there challenging that because things change so fast? And also, is that a challenge for you to quickly adapt to the new things and building up the new relationship to help them like solving the problems?
Yeah, for sure. Because we one of the big things is we manage cash flow and build out cash flow, and obviously with, for example, the tariffs that are coming on board, so that everything just starts changing, right? Even the retailers change as well. Because, you know, a founder might want to go into, for example, Sephora, but then let's say Walmart comes to the table. Are they going to say no to a $5 million PO because they're waiting on Sephora? So there's so many hard decisions that get made during a scaling stage.
Yeah, and on that question, I wanted to ask, what if it's a brand wanted to get into like Sephora, for example, because they think the old branding aesthetic and even like the level of the luxury is matching Sephora better compared with Walmart. So what would your advice to that?
Well, this comes back to what is the end goal, right?
Okay.
What is your end goal for the brand? Because some founders, they just want Sephora, they just want Ulta, and they wait years for it, right? But maybe that is your end goal. But then if your end goal is to make a lot of money really quickly and Walmart knocks on your door or CVS knocks on your door, they've got 10,000 doors. They'll always do better than Sephora. So you've got, you know, a $5-10 million PO. So what is your end goal at the end of the day? And that's, it really comes back to that. What is your end goal? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I found a lot of American brand, from day one they get investment, or
Yeah.
they at least get some fund from friends or something like that, and they can building up the brand awareness really quickly.
Yeah.
So, but I think in Australia, it's most of the founders like kind of self-funding or bootstrapped. So, give us some insight of like the
Yeah.
both side, which way you should go.
Investment is an interesting topic.
Okay.
I have turned down a lot of founders that come to me thinking that it's really easy to get an investor.
It's
on
a full-time job.
It is a full-time job. A lot of the time when they come to me and ask me, hey, can you help me get an investor? 10 out of the 10 times I say no. Because getting an investor as a founder, you're right, it is a full-time job and it's very hard to do, especially in this day and age as well. You know, it's not just, unless you are already having that network of private equity, you already have a network of high net worth individuals. If you don't have that network to pull from, you're really cold calling. You have to be out there calling up people, messaging people, emailing people, going out there networking. I know founders that it's been 5 years on and they're still cap raising. It's a hard and a long-term thing for a founder. And like I said, they have to be doing it full time, going out there. And I think I mentioned this in the Sydney event. I think a lot of the time now founders have romanticized investment because of social media. You scroll on your social media feed, you see founders talk about, you know, they've got a $20 million investment. They sold their business for $300 million. And you kind of compare yourself, right? You're like, oh, I don't have that. But like, that's why it's really important not to compare yourself with what you see on social media, because I think everyone is a founder story right now. And you know, all these founders are talking about they sold for $600 million. They did this, they did that. And then I think a lot of time founders lose focus. And then they kind of go, oh, well, if they got $20 million, I want that too. And it's really hard to get that.
And a lot of self-doubting.
And I think, and a lot of founders don't actually know the investment game. It's about company valuation and how much are you willing to give away and what are you valued now? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's a big piece in itself. Investment can take 2-3 years to get.
And also when you give out your like equity or your shares, then you also lose the control. Like you're literally finding a boss yourself.
Yeah, and it's hard because like because I do company evaluations and I help with investment documentations, it's how much are you worth? And it's such a subjective and it's an emotional number because you might think you're worth X amount, but an investor might not. So it's negotiating back and forth. It's a numbers game.
Yeah. The last one that I wanted to touch on is yourself, like, because I'm feeling like your world have so many things going on, like different brands and different third parties to deal with, so many problems to solve, and always need to learn new things. So I'm wondering, how would you kind of doing like your self-care or cope with the pressures and all of that? Like when things goes wrong, how would you deal with that?
I've gotten better in the years as I got older. I used to be quite on edge and a little bit highly strung, but I feel like the older I get, the more I've learned to, I guess, not stress out too much about things. And one thing, an advice that I got from a founder a long time ago is never take anything personally. When you start to take things personally in business and you get your emotions involved in there, you make really rash decisions, you get upset, it can ruin your whole day, and then you've like wasted a whole day. So I've really learned over the last few years is to not take things personally. And I think, you know, that's a skill that you really have to learn, especially if you're dealing with multiple clients, multiple brands and like so many stakeholders.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you can't control anything that. And
I always like to think if something bad happens, always kind of step back and go, am I going to care about this in 2 years' time today?
Oh, that's a very good one.
And if I don't care about it, if I'm probably not going to care about it in 2
hours,
2 hours, I let it go, because then I kind of think, you know, when I think about years ago when I've had bad days. I don't think about it now.
That's
So
true.
it's really about when you're having a bad day, like, are you going to care about this in 10 years' time?
Yeah, and
And
also
you're probably not. So let it go. Yeah.
yeah, and also I think with your expertise, it's kind of protect you a lot because you already know what's going to happen. You can expect the result or like the worst scenario what's going on. And
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up this episode, I wanted to ask you if you give one thing or if you wanted to change one thing of what the founders believe about retail, so what is that going to be?
Focus on your own lane and don't compare yourself with other brands and just stick to what your strategy is, what your end goal is, and don't get distracted by what everyone else is doing, especially on social media. Yeah.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of like noise going on and it's kind of like distracting for you.
Yeah.
So I really like it. I love our conversation. Thank you so much for
thank you
your
for having
all the
me.
sharings. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. If you find it's interesting or inspiring, share that with your besties as a morning boost, and I will see you in the next one.